Hey everyone, this is Kieran from MSK Physio, and today we're looking at how to start building some internal rotation capacity into the hip. This is a really useful movement capacity to have for anything from squatting, lunging, running, being able to sit on the ground comfortably. And so if you feel like you're not aware of what internal rotation is at the hip, have a watch of this video. If you feel like you need to increase internal rotation of the hip, then yes, also watch this video. So for internal rotation of the hip, what we're talking about is the ability for the knee to come inside of the hip. Now, we're not talking about adduction where I'm crossing this midline. We're talking about the ability for my thigh to turn in like this and my knee to come inside. Now, where this movement's important, an obvious example is something like squatting. So if I'm down in this position, my knees, if I get this mic out of the way, if my knees go this way, outwards, that is demonstrating external rotation. If I want to have some comfort and ability to squat with my legs a little more relaxed and my knees to come in, I need internal rotation. So what it can do is help you get a little more depth in your squat. You might find that you get down, you've got that external rotation, you've cued these guys to be following your toes, and you find that, well, actually, I can't get deeper. Part of it might be ankle flexibility, some of it might be some strength through your torso muscles, but ultimately, if you have a little more internal rotation, so I'm blocked now, I can't go deeper until I go into internal rotation, okay? So really, really useful for that. Another part that of the movement people don't, I think, talk about enough is when the leg's behind you. So we talk about pushing off being abducted movement, and with external rotation, but the thing is you're coming from an internally rotated position. When we land on our leg, when we're walking and running, and when we go into mid stance, we're internally rotated the whole time. So that when you push off, you've stretched your glute max among some other muscles, which enables that elastic recoil to then shorten and get into push off of external rotation, abduction. So what that looks like is when I land on this leg, my hip has got to be able to adduct and internally rotate. If it can't do that, then I'm going to land a lot more rigid. I'm going to have a lot less shock absorption going on through my hip muscles. And it means that they've been stretched less. And if they've stretched less, then it means they've got less potential to shorten, which I need them to do if I'm going to push myself off. So all that stuff aside, we're just saying that when your leg's in front of you and you land, we need internal rotation of the hip. When you're in mid stance, we're still in internal rotation. So my leg is here, it's straight, it's not turned out that way, it's this way. So internal rotation, and then when you squat or lunge, we need that internal rotation as well. So a really useful movement to have. How do we train it? Well, depending on your mobility, you could be getting into 90-90 positions like this, sitting backwards. So being able to sit into the hip like this. What I mean by that is my hand is getting squished down into the ground. If you can't do this to begin with though, you might start with a little bolster, a little pillow underneath, and you could test out this 90-90 position. An easier version though would be to start bending the knees and learning how to get comfortable here. Now, if you can't sit in this position to begin with, get a bolster, so a pillow or a rolled up yoga mat, and put that underneath you. And then what you're actually going to do to make this an active stretch and build some capacity here is to practice getting up and down onto your knees. So I'm going to go up, and then I'm going to go down. Up and down. And if the pillow is nice and high at a level that I'm comfortable at, then you're never going to go into a range that you can't control or you're not comfortable with. And the progression for that would be to remove the pillow or the height of whatever you've got underneath you slowly over time. Then eventually you can just hang out here and rest in this position when you're, I don't know, reading a book, watching TV, and you'll just develop and maintain that internal rotation more at this hip. So key points are bolster to reduce the range that you need for the internal rotation. Over time, reduce the size of the bolster so that you can get into more internal rotation at the hip. To add an active component to it, practice getting up and down. This knee is crushing into the ground. I'm trying to push the earth away from me here, and then I'm trying to slow myself down. How slow can I come back down to the ground? And you're gonna feel all these muscles in here doing quite a lot of work. Once you feel like you've got this range and you can sit comfortably, both my sit bones can kind of contact the ground, I'm not too worried about that, then you can start opening out into these 90-90 positions and start cranking into the internal rotation more. After that, you're better off getting into movements that are going to challenge the length of the external rotators. So one way to think about it is the strongest internal rotator of the hip is the glute max. And that's because when it's in its longest position, we're in internal rotation, flexion, and adduction. So that means that glute max had to allow that movement to happen. It had to lengthen under load, so an eccentric contraction. So developing the strength in those external rotators to be fully long is what's partly going to get you more internal rotation capacity, particularly in a dynamic environment. And then we also have to be able to shorten the muscles on the other side, which we have other exercises for. But we're thinking about kind of the airplane exercises, as well as anything from lunges to squats, step-ups. So we have videos for all those, and have a look at those if you need to progress that internal rotation or just the general strength of your hip extensors. If you like this video, then please hit like below. Otherwise, to check out more of our content in the future, you can subscribe to our channel by clicking our logo over here. And to check out our latest video, click up here.